Thank you, Fred, for the introduction, and I appreciate the.
It won't happen again.
Appreciate the chance to to stop by and talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the nation's capital, and some of the ideas I have for, as Fred indicated, job creation, putting our country's fiscal house back in order. Take any questions you have, and then.
Can you use the mic?
Sure can. And then I have to jump in my car and go down to the nation's capital. We got some votes this afternoon on the floor of the House. Have any of you been in the nation's capital? You ever taken the trip down there? A couple of you taken the trip? I always start my remarks by suggesting that anybody that wants to come down, organize a bus trip. I would love to host you down there. Show you around the nation's capital, point out the significant Pennsylvania history, the impact that Pennsylvania had in the founding of our nation, in the building of the United States Capitol. Is that a little better?
There's a lot of deaf people here.
How's that? Is that better? Okay, very good. So again, my name is Mike Fitzpatrick. I'm your representative of the United States Congress. I represent Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District, which is all Bucks County, and Northeast Philadelphia, and Eastern Montgomery County. The portion of Montgomery County includes Upper Dublin, portions of Upper Dublin, Upper Moreland, Abington Township, not far at all from the church here in Hatboro. Many of the zip codes around this area are in the 8th Congressional District. We have a lot of folks from Hatboro that are in the district as well. How many of you here, just so I get a sense, how many of you folks here are from the 8th District? Those areas that I just described? Okay, quite a few. Okay, so I appreciate the chance to stop by. As Fred indicated in the introduction, I have focused much of my attention in the beginning of the 112th Congress, which is the Congress that I was elected to serve in strengthening the economy and getting Americans back to work. So I want to talk a little bit about economic development, job creation in the private sector, strengthening our economy, but I also want to speak to you about the importance of government reform, the importance of getting Democrats and Republicans to work together to create solutions for the American people that will move our economy forward and strengthen our economy and move the country forward. Because in the end, we come from different perspectives and different backgrounds. Okay. We come from different backgrounds, but we're all Americans, and that's important that we recognize that. Fred indicated in the introduction that I served before I was in the United States Congress. My background is I've lived in Bucks County in the 8th District my entire life. My wife and I grew up in Bucks County. We're raising our children there. I'm an attorney. When I graduated from law school, Penn State's Dickinson School of Law, I moved back to Bucks County to represent individuals and small businesses as part of my practice in Bucks County. And in 1995, I was asked by the Board of Judges in Bucks County to serve as a member of the Board of County Commissioners. And so I was appointed to serve there and ultimately was elected 3 times onto the board to deal with mainly local issues. And those local issues, very interesting, are the same types of issues debated in the United States Congress, but from a different perspective. On the local level, a major focus of my attention from my time on the Board of County Commissioners, having grown up in Bucks County and seen a lot of development and a lot of change in this area, a major focus of mine was to preserve as much open space, farmland, parkland, critical natural areas as would be possible for future generations. And in 1997, we had a referendum question that went on the ballot. Did the taxpayers of Bucks County want to commit $59 million to preserve farmland and open space for today, but really for future generations? And we had a great debate in the community and throughout the district. And it was a wonderful thing because everybody got involved in that debate. And there were many different points of view. And I hosted and moderated a lot of those debates around the community. And everybody, even those folks had different perspectives, everybody respected those who had a view different than their own. And then the vote came in May of 1997. And there was an overwhelming support for open space preservation in Bucks County. And the individuals who came out in force and in support of land preservation, of spending money to preserve land and protect the environment, more than any other demographic, were the seniors and the retired of Bucks County. And they recognized that they would be spending some of the county resources today to preserve land in the future, not necessarily for them and their generation, but for future generations, for their grandchildren and for generations yet to be born. And I thought that it really was a wonderful and beautiful thing, and a statement as to what's important to the retired generation, the senior generation in Pennsylvania and in this region. It is, what will it take to leave a better community or a better America for future generations? And so it was as a result of those efforts that I did receive the awards from the environmental organizations that Fred talked about. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I was elected by my community to go to the United States Congress to fight for those same sorts of things, to fight to protect the environment, to fight to strengthen the economy, to fight to maintain a quality of life that we've had growing up in Pennsylvania, which is the kind of quality of life, sorts of things that we want for our children and grandchildren. And so it's a different city now that I govern from, the nation's capital, and it's a different perspective, and it's obviously a much larger audience that we're debating from, but the issues are essentially the same. And so while I fought for environmental protection as a local official, I continue to fight for those same issues and with those same values as your representative in the United States Congress. And so I have had the opportunity to work with the Defenders of Wildlife and the League of Conservation Voters and different organizations on environmental issues. I'll give you a quick example. There was a vote a couple of months ago had to do with the Endangered Species Act and whether or not the Endangered Species Act, which has been the law of the land for decades, whether or not that act would be degraded, whether or not that act would be strengthened or weakened. And again, as somebody who grew up in this area that has seen the benefit, clean water and clean air, that has seen the Endangered Species Act bring back threatened species like the gray wolf or the American bald eagle, to see those species go from endangered or threatened to now off the threatened list, that has been a very good thing, and it has been a real success story for the movement. And so I was able to work with those organizations like LCV and Defenders of Wildlife to make sure that those acts are in fact strengthened and continued and not weakened. Again, going back to my time as a county commissioner, one of the other things that I worked on had to do with economic development and job creation. And I grew up in Levittown in the shadow of a steel mill. The Fairless Works of the United States Steel Corporation was the mill itself. In Levittown, when I grew up in the 1970s, quite a few of the parents in our community had one of the two parents working at the steel mill. In the late 70s and into the 1980s, of course, we all know the story of steel in this country, and many of those jobs don't exist anymore. And so the challenge in 1995 when I became county commissioner would be to take those old industrial sites and reconvert them, to put them back to work for the American people, to put them back to work for Bucks County, to get them back on the tax rolls, to use them to create jobs in the private sector and get people back to work. And working together, Democrats and Republicans, on the Board of Commissioners, we were able to create what's called an enterprise zone, which is an organization and an area where resources are focused to redevelop, to take brownfields and turn them around, to take non-performing property and use those properties to create jobs, to take real estate that's not necessarily yielding tax revenue for the local governments and get them producing taxes and revenue for the local governments. Again, make it easier and better and more efficient to provide police protection and fire protection. Our enterprise zone in Bucks County was successful in seeing about 4,000 jobs created in the 8 years from about 1996 until about 2004. And so that was a major success story, and that's the kind of experience now as a member of the United States Congress that I take to the Congress, getting people back to work, working with the private sector, working with local governments to get the economy moving again.